Thank you so much for joining us on Straight Outta Savannah, talking with Tammy. My guest, Adriana Monique Alvarez, is here, and I'm super excited that she has chosen to join us to have this conversation on Straight Outta Savannah, talking with Tammy. So, Adriana, take it away. Share with the people your goodness.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. And yes, I'm excited to talk about. There's so many things we could talk about, but one of the things that I love to do is to bring people's stories out into the world. To number one, help them remember that they have stories, their life experiences have cultivated deep and meaningful stories within them. And
Mm.
this is actually the way that we pass wisdom on. Relaying information is one thing, but passing wisdom and passing healing and really creating this return to the sacred storyteller is what I'm all about.
Yes, yes, that is so powerful. So tell me, share with us, how did you get to this place where you recognize that, you know, number one, that we have wisdom inside of us, and
Mm.
number two, that people need to share.
Mm.
Tell me, how did you get to that place where that came up for you?
I would say the first time that I really recognized this is after I graduated from high school. I was that straight A student that everyone expected to go to college. And instead of going to college, I went overseas as a volunteer. And the first country I was in was Albania. They had just went through the Kosovo crisis. They were opening up as a country, coming out of a dictatorship. And I was volunteering at an orphanage, and there was 120 children there. And I didn't know Albanian, but within 3 months I did because they
Wow.
wanted to communicate with me. They had stories to share. They had things that they wanted to pass on to me. And so when I would sit with those children and they were so eager to tell me stories, whether it was about what had happened that day at school or what happened to their family or what was happening in their country, I realized that there was actually nothing more important that I could do for them than to listen to their stories.
Mm.
That was incredibly healing. And so that was my very first taste of that. And then when I came back to the US from volunteering, I met my husband, and when I would go to networking events after we started our business, I realized a similar thing, that there are some people who go to a BNI or a chamber event and they're sort of passing out business cards like, they're dealing a 21 game on the table.
Yes, yes.
Right? And then there's people that you could sense that were really present. And
Mm.
so I made the commitment that I was going to be a regular networker, that I was going to show up. But what I decided is that I would at least connect. I would connect with at least one person on a deep level at every meeting. And then that I would invite at least one person to a meal. So I was taking someone to breakfast, lunch, and dinner nonstop. And I was asking them about their life, about their business, what would help them at this time, who did they want to be introduced to, what kind of referrals do they most appreciate. And so, in that time of deep listening and hearing their story and figuring out what they wanted, it helped me become a much better business person. And it also helped me become someone who became a master at giving and receiving referrals. So the foundation was laid there before I was ever in publishing, before I ever helped someone publish a book and tell their story in that way. I really began to value what people had to say and the stories that they had to share.
Mm. That is powerful and deep, because the thing is people don't realize that that really is the essence of business.
Hmm.
Learning how to listen and learning how to hear what people are saying. Because when I listen to that, I hear that you are super intuitive, and I hope that you own that.
Mm. Mm. You are spot on. Yes. And for many years I didn't. I kept that a secret. I like to say I was sort of in the closet. And at some point I just couldn't be that anymore. It's like I couldn't hold that in, and I did. I fully owned it. I remember the day I did so. I said, this is who I am. This is how I operate. And it's more than intellectual knowledge, it's more than education. It's about that intuition, it's about that tuning in on a heart to heart, soul to soul level, and
Yes.
hearing what's not being said.
Yes. Yes. Because the thing is there's so much of us that we don't say. There's
Mm.
so much that, we're putting it out to the universe, and we are, but we just don't realize that, and we don't say it. It's coming out, it's oozing out through our character, it's oozing out through our conversation,
Yes.
but we're not saying it. And so I think that being that amazing intuitive that you are, that you're probably able to get things out of people that maybe they weren't intending to share.
Yes, I sometimes feel like a priest at the end of a
Yes, yes.
conversation. No, it's true, and it's how I accidentally, sort of fell and stumbled into publishing, because I had thousands of clients that were telling me through various conversations or events that they were going to write a book, they had a book to write, and then I realized that none of them were, and so it was the thing that I couldn't just let be. I couldn't leave
Yes.
it alone. And so I began to ask
Yes.
them, well, what happened to your book? Why didn't you publish it? What's going on? And they all told me the same thing. It's very intimidating. It's a whole nother world. I have to keep my business running. I got to keep raising the kids. And now I got to figure out the publishing world. Just one thing had to go, right? So
Yes.
it didn't make the cut. So that's when I
Yes.
began to look at, okay, how can we create solutions so that that isn't the thing that falls off, because it's just too much to take on. It's too much to tackle.
Well, because just like they said, because it's a whole nother world. Now,
And
what
it
I did
is.
was, and everybody's not me, right? What I did was I started doing the research. But
Yes.
that's because that's me. You know what I mean? Like if you
Yes.
say something today, I will go and I will start Googling it. I will put it in the greatest search engine of the world, YouTube,
Yes.
and I'll go to Google and YouTube University because I was that student like you, straight A student, went to college. I did go to college for a couple of years, but I just bounced around. I went for different majors. I didn't know what the hell I wanted to do. I mean, I kind of sort of, it's like when you get there, you say, okay, this is what I've been saying all these years, but I don't want to do that, you know?
Yes.
And so I started, and didn't never finish, but bounced around, did a few things and then, started popping puppies. So I understand that when you say that, because the thing is, people see one thing, but you see something else. I
Mm.
mean, about you.
Mm. Yes.
Like people might have seen, oh, she'll go to college and she'll be a blah 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 and she'll study blah 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 blah, but you're not seeing that. You see something else. And I have to give you kudos for actually, taking that trip,
Mm.
because it sounds like when you took that trip, it opened up your world.
Oh, it so did. And I was that girl. I was that girl that everybody saw a path for me. And I didn't want that path. I didn't see myself on that path. That path would not have brought me joy. And the one that I saw myself on, they could never imagine, oh, you can't handle that. That's dangerous. That's out of your league. What are you thinking? You're going to travel alone as a female at 21 years old to a place you've never been, to people you don't know who they are, you don't speak their language. And it was then, like you said, the whole new world opened up. I grew up in a town in the middle of nowhere. We're 8 hours from any major city. It's like 7,000 people. And so I had the tiniest worldview. And I only knew myself through the lens of others. And so when I began to go out on this adventure by myself, I actually figured out I was much more capable than anyone had given me credit for.
Yes.
And one of the things that I like to remind, especially women, of is that when you were young or when you were growing up, there might not have been a single person who looked at you and thought, you're going to do great things, but you can do great things.
Mm, yes. And women need that. We need to hear that. It's like for me, I'm one of these people that if I saw you on the street somewhere and I passed you and you had on, beautiful shoes, or, your makeup was just flawless and it looked amazing. I'm one of these people that will walk up to you and say, girl, you are slaying that look. Are
Yes.
those shoes are bomb. I mean, like I seen a girl the other day. Oh my God, she had the most amazing shoes. They were so cute. They were heels, so they were almost looking like hooker heels, but they were cute.
Yes.
And I told her, I said, girl, you are wearing those shoes. They look so good on you. But that's something that I do because I believe that, women need to hear compliments,
We
and they
do.
need to hear it from other women, and you know, not that I'm trying to pick anybody up. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Not in that way, not in a sleazy way is what I say,
That's
but
right.
in a way that makes her know that women appreciate, her,
Mm.
her for whatever beauty she has for that day.
Mm.
And that's something that, I just truly believe that we need,
Yes.
because men get it, but they get it in subtle ways.
Mm.
Like when they go to the gym, when other men look at them and stuff like that, even if they're not gay or anything like that, they appreciate it
Mm.
because somebody is appreciating the work that they put in,
Yes.
and women need that as well. And not only just at the gym, which if I went there, I would do the same thing, like, girl, you look so good, And I think I just really truly believe it's because we need that, especially now in this world with everything that we're going through,
Mm.
So,
Absolutely.
and what you do is like amazing. So I have one question. What was your first business? That was the one thing.
Mm. Yes.
What was your
So
first business?
the very first business is my husband and I when we sat down to put together a business in 2009, which was not an ideal. Like nobody would have said this is a good year to start a business, right? The stock market crashed.
Right. People would have said, probably you want to wait on that. You might want to get a job.
Yes, go get a job right now. Yeah,
Right.
that's what everybody told us. And so we were talking one day and I said, "I know what we can do. I know baby boomers because I know my parents, both of my parents have owned a business my entire life. My mom's celebrating 40 years in business this year. My dad's
Wow,
been
how
in business.
nice.
Oh, yeah, my dad's been in the lumber business for maybe a little bit longer than that. And so I said, I know baby boomers. I know this market, and I know they don't know how to use the internet. I know they don't know how to use social media, and they have their own methods, but the world is changing. And the online methods are going to matter. And so I began to go to these events and I used to have these conversations and just asking, just gathering information. Do you have a profile on Facebook? Do you have a profile on LinkedIn? What are you doing with your website? How do you collect leads? Are you sending out emails? And all of them were like, oh no, that stuff makes my head hurt. So what I did, because of the circumstances, I knew that I had to focus on businesses that were solid, rock solid, very established. They had at least $1 million in revenue. The owners had investments. They had good cash flow because I didn't want my services to hurt them or crunch them, especially given what was going on in the world. So I focused on the people who were doing really well, in other words. And I created solutions based on the things they told me they were not good at, that they were overwhelmed by, that they weren't willing to learn. And so I would present to them this proposal, and boom, I would walk out of every meeting. Back in those days, it sounds funny now, with a check. And we had long-term clients because they just knew, they began to see how the world was shifting. And it began to work for them. They really got a whole new stream of leads and business through the internet. And so that was how we originally started. And we did that for 7 years until I had 2 babies in 12 months. And that's when a huge transition happened.
So are you still doing that business or no?
No, no. That one completely evolved. I think it was probably about a year or two after the boys were born that the last of those clients we sort of referred them out to other people. And what I began to focus on was just the business consulting, because at that time we were doing done for you services, which is, more intensive. And I now had two babies in my arms. And so we switched to consulting. And so I came online, came into the world of social media. Before that, I had no idea about, all the things that you could do online and all the people you could meet. And so I created a mastermind and I began to do business consulting. And so once a week, I had a 1 hour call with that one group. And then outside of that, I was being a mama. And as the boys got bigger and more independent, then I began to add services. And then it was 2 years ago that I started the publishing company.
That is like so much fire. And how many books have you published with that company so far?
Let's see here. 7 myself. So 7 multi-author books, and I've also worked with solo authors. And then I think we're probably right around 40 or 50 publishing houses that we have helped create.
That is so powerful. That is so powerful. Yeah, we're gonna probably have a conversation later, you and I.
Okay, sounds good.
Because that's something that I'm feeling because I know how it feels.
Mm,
It's like, you're in the middle of this, you have something to say, but you got to figure out, who can help you, or, if you even need help, and if you can get the help that you need.
mm,
So do you do like, um, so would you call yourself like a hybrid publisher, or are you a complete publisher, or how does that work?
mm. Good question. So we do so many different types of projects. For example, like I've produced these 7 books, and one of them is a USA Today best-selling book. But there's books that we have helped others produce, and then there's sort of an in-betweener where I work with very well-established companies or brands or influencers who know that they want to have a book that maybe features their clients or people in their audience. And if they put out one post or one email, they could fill it. But they don't want to learn how it all works. They don't want to be involved. And so we essentially run the project under their name. And so it's a stream of income for them. For most of the people who do this, they can add a 6-figure stream of income with one book. But then they don't have to learn all the aspects. So there are so many things we could do. So yeah, hybrid is probably a good term to use, because like we have partners that can do all kinds of different things. If we need a traditional publishing house involved, if we want to go for the big list, the Wall Street Journal, the USA Today, even New York Times, we have that, access for our team. So there's basically, if people can dream it, we can create it.
That is awesome. I like that. I got to write that down.
Yeah, there's so many
That is powerful.
possibilities. Mm,
Yes, yes. And the thing is I like the fact that you can bring them in, you can listen to them, and you can hear what they're saying, and you can hear what they're not saying.
mm,
So I can almost hear your your consult,
mm.
like you can listen to what they're saying, and how they're talking about, what it is that they do. And if you do it on Zoom, like I love to do, you can see their expressions,
Yes.
and you can see how they light up, and how they glow up, when
Yes.
they're talking about that particular thing. And then you're like, okay, well, let's talk about this, and you bring them to the place where they're sharing, how they want to influence people, or how they want to, what they want their book to do or say.
Mm,
So walk me through a conversation like that. Say
mm,
I was coming to you and I said, I really, people have told me that I should share my story, every time I talk about it,
mhm,
you know, um, how can you help me do that?
mm. Well, typically I look for a couple of things, because what I have found, especially with solo authors, is that because writing a book is such a transformational experience, and it brings us face to face with all of our fears, with our past, our present, and our future, I make sure that that person who's sitting across from me is ready and sure to their core, to their bones, that they are in fact, meant to be a channel for this message. That this is part of the gift that they give to the world. Because this is a key part of it. Writing a book, especially a solo book, there has to be a bigger purpose and vision, because there's always going to be hiccups and challenges, whether life circumstance happens and the writing process gets slowed down or some process. There's also that fear of this is available everywhere. That one aunt or that one neighbor who's friends with so-and-so, like anyone and everyone could read it. And so coming to terms with the fear of really being seen and heard on a large scale. So that's the first thing that I do. Is this part of a bigger purpose? Do you know that this is part of why you're here and what you were born to do? And then I began to look at what's the most important aspects. What would make you say this was so fulfilling at the end? What needs to be there? What's not as important? So we began to prioritize and look at what really matters for that particular person, because it's such a spectrum. The other thing is as you mentioned, that part that's not being said, most of the time in these calls, I help them give themselves permission to be big. Most people are living a smaller version of themselves than they could be. And so I invite them, they don't need my permission. They need to give themselves permission to live big, to fully embrace their power. Because a book, when a person writes a book, it's truly an initiation. It's this moment of saying, I'm owning and acknowledging why I'm here, and it's not to pay bills, watch Netflix, and take the trash out on Tuesday. Right?
Right.
It's more than that. And so that's really what, it's a declaration. It's a declaration. So I help them get present with all of this. And then we can create a game plan. And I would say what I have found with books is that it actually needs these two components of the practical. How does it look? How do we walk this out? How do we go from point A to point B? But also this energetic, spiritual support, acting as the midwife as this birth is being brought to the world, because it is an incredibly spiritual experience.
Exactly. And I can see that that's something that you help them to bring forward and to recognize that, it's an amazing time, and it's something that, so many people want to do, but I don't think they realize how much of an energetic spiritual experience it is, because it's like, I don't know, for me, I think about my personal book. It was like, it took me through places that I had been already, and not fun places.
So I hear you.
And I think about it, I think about something that what is his name? The Pursuit of Happiness.
Oh, yes.
Chris Gardner.
Yes, Chris Gardner.
I think about something he said, and that inspired me actually. He said that somebody asked him after The Pursuit of Happiness had come out and after Will Smith did the movie and all this good stuff. They asked him, what was harder, writing the story or living it? And I will never forget this, because he said, actually writing the story. He said, because living the story, you didn't have time to think about it. Living the story, you just had to live it. You had to do what you had to do, whatever that was, in whatever context, because I'm thinking about like the time when he was putting the washing the boy in the restroom in the subway, and that, I mean, I can just only imagine being a mother, you know what I mean?
Yes.
I can only imagine that, and that actually would take you to a place where you're like, okay, for me, when I read that, I was like, well, if he can do that, then I can share this, because you're in the middle of this mess and of this crisis, and you really don't know which way to turn. You know what I mean? While you're going through it. But once you're writing it, you know that you've gotten through it. So that's the main part.
Mm.
You know that, even though you had to take yourself back to this place where you were, that wasn't really pleasant, but you do know that you got through it.
Yes.
So to me, that would be like the major thing. It's like, okay, I got through this, so
Absolutely.
it's almost like I seen this movie the other day about uh going to different universes.
Mm.
And to me, that's what that would be like. It's like
Yeah.
going back to that particular universe where, this particular thing happened or these particular things happened or whatever. And so you take yourself back to that universe,
Mm.
so that you can write it, so that you can share it,
Yes.
so that you can, in my case, I wanted to bless and inspire people.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted people to know that, you can go through anything and you can still come out on the other side. You don't have to be evil. You don't have to be
Mm.
hateful. You don't have to have all this bitterness. You don't have to have all these diseases because you have, created them and brought them on yourself because of how bitter you are or
Mm.
hateful or, all these things. And so that was something that I thought about. What do you encourage your clients to consider as they are thinking about writing this book? What
Mm.
are some things that you say, you might need to think about this?
Mm. So you said a big one that I often tell my clients is are you ready to be a blessing to the world? Are you aware of the people that you're meant to serve through this message? And then also, what do you want to happen after the book? Because a lot of the focus, rightly so, is on writing this book and editing and formatting and getting it to Amazon and hitting bestseller. But the truth of the matter is the real journey starts once that book is here. And what are we going to do once it's available and once people can read it? That is actually when the next plan has to start. And I find that most people they'll write the book and they'll release the book and they'll launch it and they'll celebrate, and that's the end. And so this is one of the big things I ask people, what are we going to do after it's released? This is what has the potential to make such a huge difference, in terms of impact, income, opportunities, depending on what that person wants. Does this person want featured in the media? Do they want on podcasts? Do they want on stage? Do they want to sell something on the back end? Do they have a program, a mastermind, a retreat? Do they want to hold conferences? What type of vision do they have? And how are we going to allow this book to become the vehicle for all of that? And this is really, really key.
That's powerful because the thing is so many people out here that, are trying to help people write books. And, we see it every day on social media. Every day, somebody's pitching on what's that, Instagram. Always, swipe up here or swipe over here, and I'll show you how to write the book and all that stuff. But what you just said was a mouthful because there are like millions of people that are saying, okay, I'll show you how to write the book, you know, but nobody is looking at that standpoint. And I'm not going to say
Mm.
nobody, but most people are not looking at it from that standpoint, and to me that was a perfect example of how can I serve,
Mm.
because
Yes.
that's something that people are always asking, ask, how can you serve, how can you serve, how can you serve? And most of the time we don't really know what that means,
Mm.
because we're trying to serve, but we're also in business.
Mm.
We also have to make money because I don't know about anybody else, but I like to eat.
Right. And I like good food.
Good food, exactly. And I don't like to have to worry about whether I'm gonna be able to afford it,
That's right.
So I got all of that. But as you help these people to to me it sounds like not only are you helping them to create their masterpiece, their book, their anthology, or whatever it is, you're also asking them to create the vision that they have.
Mm.
You're also asking them to, see beyond just, putting this book out here. Because just like you said, you can put a book out there. Hell, I put a book out in January. I mean, you can put books out there, but what are you going to do with them?
Mm.
And for me at that time, I wrote that book just because I wanted to do it. It was something I desired to do, and I wanted to see how the process worked, because that one I actually published myself.
Mm.
And
Yes.
so I wanted to see, how this process worked and what it is that I needed to do, because there are some other books that are coming through me.
Mm.
And I know this. Um, so as you are able to help people to not only create their masterpiece and write their book, but also help them to find their vision,
Mm.
and that's, to me, that's amazing. Because I don't know if, I mean, do they realize that they're also getting business coaching as well?
Well, they figure it out pretty quickly, but yeah, usually I think that most people just get sort of, tunnel vision on the book,
Yes.
and it's so much bigger than that. And you're right, it is really about calling out the great visionary and leader that is within them, because
Yes.
it takes a visionary and a leader to look at all these different components and to look at what am I willing to be committed to for the 6 to 12 months after this book comes out. There's huge growth in every direction for the individual, for the business, for the community that they'll lead, for the wisdom that they'll pass on.
I love that. I love that. I love that. I love it, because it's like so many times, you know, women don't realize, especially women, don't realize the wisdom that we have and that we carry and that we pass on. We just don't.
Mm-hmm.
You think about yourself and you're like, okay, but I really have thought about that, because I'm writing a book about my grandmother,
Mm-hmm.
and she was my person. She passed on the pearls and the wisdom. And so the name of it is Passing the Pearls.
Mm. I love that.
Because she did, and I'm it's a way for me to honor her as well, for, being that person that passed the pearls. So I'm super excited that Adriana has come on to join me. This has been such an amazing conversation. I just love when people come on and they share all of this goodness with us and actually tell us, who they are, because that is really one of the things that interests me, and one of the reasons why I started this show, because I wanted people to come on and share their goodness of who they are and what it is that they do in the planet and how they can help you and how they're changing the planet. Because that is the thing, especially now, because we are in this season where, we need people that are ready to change the planet, ready to, you know um exchange one narrative for another.
Mm.
Because we have a lot of narratives right now. So the fact that Adriana is doing her thing and she is moving the needle toward, making the planet a better place, I really believe that. And so I want to thank you for joining us on Straight Out of Savannah, talking with Tammy, with my guest Adriana Monique Alvarez. And so, what I want her to do now is just share a little bit about, how you can connect with her and the people that she's looking for to connect with her.
Mm. Thank you so much, Tammy. The best way to connect is at amaspeaks.com. That's amaspeaks.com. And I would love for you to leave a little information there. I want to hear what's in your heart. And really, what I'm being asked to do is to support the leaders that are taking us into this next phase. We are entering a new phase as humanity, as a collective. And it is really a heart led, soul based way of being. And so I'm interested in connecting with people who know who they are and what they're here to do. If they're clear on that, then we can make magic.
That is, that's what's up. That is what's up. Making magic. I love that. I love that. If you know who you are, then you can make magic. That is powerful. So again, thank you so much for joining us. This has been such an amazing show, and I am so grateful to Adriana for joining us. And so, if you are ready to reach out to Adriana and grab you a session with her to help you to decide about your book, if you are looking at, do you do anthologies as well?
I do.
Anthologies or books, which, if you don't know, anthologies are amazing. It helps you to write a book without having to write the whole book.
That's right.
Which, I think is amazing, which is something that I'm feeling called to do as well. So I'll probably reach out to Adriana as well. So again, thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your time, your day, evening, or weekend, whenever you are catching this broadcast. So again, thank you so much for joining me, Adriana, and thank you for joining me, everyone else. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.
Bye.